The Farmer and the Cow. Once upon a time, there was a farmer called Anyo. Anyo was not a rich farmer, but he was very happy. He worked in the fields with his only cow from dawn until dusk. This provided Anyo with vegetables to eat and extra crops which he would sell to the local villagers on market day so that he might buy other foods. Anyo and his cow worked very hard, but they were contented with their simple life and they did not complain as they had everything they needed. But one year everything changed. The rains did not come and the farmland began to dry up and turn to dust. Because there was no rain, the crops did not grow and Anyo had nothing to sell to the villagers, and therefore no money to buy food. The poor farmer became very hungry and was forced to sell everything he had inside of his little house in exchange for food so that he could feed himself and his beloved cow. Anyo hoped for the rains to come so that he might return to the fields and resume work. Several months passed and there was still no rain. The crops did not grow and Anyo and his cow grew more and more hungry. There was nothing left to sell and so there was no food to eat. Eventually, Anyo could bear the hunger no longer. The farmer turned to his cow and said, "I am very sorry, but I am afraid that I might have to eat you." The cow looked at Anyo and tears started to roll down from its wide eyes. When Anyo saw the tears he became very upset and felt such guilt that he had even suggested eating his faithful cow. He threw his arms around the cow and said to him, "I am so sorry. I will never suggest such a thing again. Will you please forgive me?" The cow nodded his head and was very relieved not to be eaten. Suddenly it began to rain and the lands turned from dust to rich soil. The crops began to grow and it was not long before Anyo and his faithful cow were back in the fields once more. When harvest time came around, Anyo and his cow were very busy and worked from dawn until dusk in the fields. They had more crops than ever before and Anyo and his cow were happy again. They gathered the crops and went into the village where they sold their produce to the people gathered in the market. This gave them money to buy food so that they were no longer hungry. From that day on, Anyo promised that he would never eat beef because his cow was sacred and provided him with milk and helped him work in the fields to provide crops to be eaten and sold for money. A confused mind. The word confusion sometimes makes you spin your head and lose everything. Sometimes it brings you a new idea and gets you on right path. As I grow older, I have more and more responsibilities and obligations to myself and my dear ones. Basically, I have had a very simple family background that they, my parents, themselves are struggling for their day-to-day life happening. As I talk to my parents, I get to know that they are still not in a good financial status. One of the major reasons why I was sent to India was just to relieve their financial burden and extra belly in a family with limited means of livelihood. Honestly, sometimes I feel that I am nowhere fit in this world. I am like a good guy that lost in a crowd with "oh yes, I think that I remember that guy," but even though I go to work regularly reading a lots about business and idea, a part of me is like where I am now. Obviously a guy getting close to 30 years old needs to have a decent job and a woman of his taste. Here I am like parachute hanging on the tree. My close and dear ones are worried about my future and a woman that partner with me. They try to hook me up with a desi gal in abroad, so that I have more comfortable life rather than working hard in India with little here and there. However, I am still like I don't know about marriage and need some more times to think. It's odd times for me. Hopefully that confused mind won't drain my energy and loose temper. Our beliefs totally depend on our everyday attitude. Reading and writing stuffs may help me to get on celebration. Health is wealth. Once upon a time, there was a king who was very lazy. He did not like to do anything. He waited for his attendants to serve him every moment. He used to lie on his bed always. A time came when he really became inactive, only eating good food, and its sleeping made him fatty. So fat he became that he could not move around by himself. He felt sick, doctors were called in to treat him. Nothing could help him to become fit and fine. The king was a kind-hearted and cordial person. All his subjects were sorry to learn about the fact that their king was not well. One day the minister met a holy man, Sadhu, on the outskirts of the city. While conversing with each other, the Sadhu came to know the fact that the king was unwell. He told the minister that he could cure the king. Hearing this, the minister's face brightened. He arranged immediately for a meeting of the Sadhu and the king. The Sadhu saw the depressed king for a while and then spoke nothing serious had happened and that the king would be all right. From the next day, the treatment would start. He asked the king to come to his hut, which was at a distance from the palace. The king had to come on foot to the hut. The king agreed. After so many years, the king came outside to walk on the road. His ministers and attendants accompanied him. By the time he reached the Sadhu's hut, he was breathless, sweating and uncomfortable. The Sadhu came out of the hut noticing everything. He offered cool water to the king. The king felt better. The Sadhu brought out an iron ball, the size of a football, and gave it to the attendants, asking His Majesty that daily morning and evening he had to roll that ball in the palace grounds. The king okayed to the Sadhu and left. After 15 days, when the Sadhu came to the palace to meet the king, he had lost a considerable amount of weight, was feeling much better and was active. All his sickness had disappeared. In spite of a lot of wealth, the king was not happy as he was unhealthy, so the moral is health is wealth.